A statement win indeed for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. They move up in the AP poll after the win over number 16 Utah. They're 4-0. Utah now 3-1 heading into Morgantown against the West Virginia Mountaineers. Last week, Devin Dampier was 25 of 38. He had 162 yards, 2 interceptions on the day for Dampier, and of course that one touchdown that he threw. It was a pretty one. I will say it was a pretty one to Jackson Benny, but it got called back, and it was a big one as Utah never really regained that offensive edge. This week, I think a lot of the similar story. That's what you're going to be looking for Utah. You're not going to need to push the ball down the field in the way, right? The necessity is not there for you to maybe do it against West Virginia as it was against Texas Tech. But I think from a fan perspective, even I'm sure from the coaching staff, from the perspective of everyone up there on the Hill, you've got to see it. You've got to see Devin Dampier get the ball down the field, push things vertically, and make something happen in that regard. And I think for Utah, it's really the only piece. There's some depth questions with some injuries that we'll get to later on in the program, of course. We'll have a segment dedicated to that as the Big 12 availability report is a thing now. But for Utah, I think those are really the only things that are glaring holes with this team. Some special teams mishaps early that I think are very correctable and a lot due to a collection of kicker, snapper, holder, all doing things for the first time together. So we'll break it all down with our friends on the Utes Game Day pregame show. Of course, this opening segment and the Game Day pregame show brought to you by our friends at Outlaw Distillery. They are a local company, and they're going to join us here a little bit later on in the show. It's outlawdistillery.com. They are the official spirits provider for our VIP tailgate. So if you happen to make your way to the ESPN 700 VIP tailgate on game days, you're going to be able to try a little Outlaw Distillery. But you can also head over to local liquor stores. You can head to Outlaw Distillery, take a tour, and get a tasting as well, and go from there. They're also at Big Willie's. Big Willie's, the title sponsor of the Sean O'Connell Show. They've got some Outlaw Distillery for you as well. Go and ask them. Tell them we sent you. Back on the other side, Kyle Whittingham, his weekly press conference. What did he think about the loss to Texas Tech, and what does he think about a trip to Morgantown, the Utes' first ever matchup in Morgantown, the first Big 12 matchup between these two schools, and the first non-bowl game against these two schools. Of course, they met in a bowl game in 2017 and then all the way back in 1964. So you got to go all the way back for the last two matchups between these two schools. Kyle Whittingham, his weekly press conference, that comes your way next. Zach Moss a little bit later on. Kenneth Scott later in the show. We'll give you that Big 12 injury report. We'll give you a college football scoreboard and our Big 12 power rankings. And then as we wrap it up, James and I will give you our predictions for the show and send it over to Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, and Stevenson Sylvester for the call of the game. It's Utah at West Virginia, Big 12 football, right here on your home of the Utes and Utah's #1 sports talk. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Hey, Kyle Whittingham bringing us back in on the Utes Game Day pregame show. Appropriately so. This segment, the Kyle Whittingham press conference, brought to you each and every week by our friends at Sound Warehouse. They have extended the super end of summer sale, so don't miss out on the best deals of the year right now. Sound Warehouse has been rocking your ride for over 47 years. 3 convenient locations in Salt Lake, Orem, and Ogden. Visit soundwarehouse.com today for your car stereo systems, navigation, integration, amplifiers, and more. All of your audio and visual solutions at Sound Warehouse. And if you stop by during the week, make a purchase at Sound Warehouse, they're going to give you some tailgate passes to come by our VIP tailgate at the next Utah home game. What did Kyle Whittingham have to say about the loss to Texas Tech and about this upcoming matchup with West Virginia? Well, here he is, his weekly press conference brought to you by Sound Warehouse. I'll either do a super short segment or double up at some point. Maybe after Kenneth. That was Kyle Whittingham at his weekly press conference, brought to you today by our friends at Sound Warehouse. Of course, rocking your ride for 47 years now, 3 locations, Salt Lake, Orem, and Ogden. Visit soundwarehouse.com today. And like I mentioned, if you stop by, you can get tailgate passes to our VIP tailgate up at campus for the next University of Utah home game. That's Sound Warehouse and soundwarehouse.com. Back on the other side, we just heard from Kyle Whittingham. How about one more great in Utes lore? Zach Moss joins the program on the other side. Talking a little Texas Tech, talking the season so far, and previewing our matchup today. It's Utah and West Virginia in Morgantown, where we'll send it to Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, and Stevenson Sylvester for the call momentarily. Zach Moss, Kenneth Scott, a little trip around college football, and more still to come on the Utes Game Day pregame show. I am Porter Larsen. James Peterson behind the glass on Utah's #1 sports talk. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. The pleasure is always ours on ESPN 700 and your home of the Utes, of course, when you can have the leading rusher of all time in program history. We'll take it each and every time you want to join us. Of course, we're talking Utah football. The 3-1 Utes no longer ranked after a loss to Texas Tech. Zach, we'll start there. You and I were both pretty confident in Utah going into that game, and I think in a lot of ways rightfully so, but we did express some concern in Utah's ability to get down the field, right? It just wasn't something we had seen to that point in the season, and it's something we talked about before the Wyoming game when we spoke, and we didn't see it against Wyoming, and we didn't see it against Texas Tech, and I think it was kind of the Red Raiders' game plan, Zach. They really shut down Utah's run and focused on that and said, hey, beat us through the air. Utah wasn't necessarily able to do that. Is that how you saw the game break down, and were the concerns you had going in what you saw kind of play out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, going into that game, we all thought about just the deep passing game. We hadn't seen it put on tape versus three opponents that, wasn't that, highly respected from the competition standpoint. So when you don't see that versus three opponents where you believe as offense you should, right? Once you get into conference play where the competition goes up a few notches, it was going to be really hard for them to replicate that. And obviously Tech saw that, and they had a great game plan on how they want to go out and execute it, and they did. Stopping the run was the main thing, keeping Dampier contained pretty good. Obviously he had an injury that not many of us also knew about, so I'm sure that played into a lot of things on probably how the offense was called. But nonetheless, I think just the lack of explosiveness when you need it and can manufacture it, it's going to be not just a last week issue. It's going to be an issue for the rest of the season, honestly, unless things can get figured out and somebody really emerges at the top.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, it's something. It's going to be a continuous conversation until they show the ability to get the ball down the field. Zach, there's not a number of ways you can do that. It doesn't always have to be like a number one outside receiver, but man, it sure helps to have that threat out there, even just as a decoy, even just to move that safety over a couple of feet or keep his eyes to the outside of the field for that extra second that, he has to because of that threat out there. And it just doesn't seem like Utah really has that at the moment. Now, part of that has to be on the quarterback as well, getting the ball to those guys. There were a few. The one that Devin Dampier hit on, of course, the touchdown was called back against Texas Tech. I think the game would have been, maybe a little bit different had that one gone through. But, Zach, what do you see as the most likely source of that outside or down the field threats, right? Is it Tobias Merriweather, the transfer? Is it Jackson Benny, who we've seen playing over from the defensive side? Smith Snowden seems to be more of a guy there wanting to get the ball into his hands in the backfield and in space. Where do you see that coming from for Utah, that outside threat?
I'm not absolutely sure, man. To be honest with you, I haven't.
Yep.
It leaves you kind of just asking a lot of questions, just the overall team. But obviously, when you have guys coming over from defense and having to play offense, that's also a lot of red flags as well, because the guys you're recruiting and all these different things aren't able to make those plays in their own rooms right now. So that's always something you have to look at. I know we love seeing those guys do their thing and make plays on both sides, but that is something you really have to look at. I think the tight ends is going to be, somebody that can help this offensive passing game get a little bit more loose. And I think the guys outside are just going to have to come along with that, just because it's so much easier to get the ball to tight ends across the middle of the field, especially when you have a guy like Dampier. Linebackers going to cheat up. You have two backs who can do two different things, get out of the backfield as well and catch the ball. So it might be a little easier from my vantage point of how I'm looking at things to get the tight ends, which has some really good tight ends, obviously, in the pass as well. So I think it'll be a lot easier maybe to get those guys going and just get some things over the middle. And then guys outside would just have to win one-on-ones when the number is called.
Well, and that's what matchups Utah is going to start to see, because as we see this on film, Zach, so are opponents. They're going to see that as well. And, they're going to challenge Utah's wide receivers. They're going to leave them one-on-one with some of their best corners. And, yes, that's kind of a negative for Utah when teams can start to stack the box. They can start to creep in their nickel or even put an extra linebacker out there, right? But that does leave opportunity for Utah, right? So you look at those players, the Tobias Merriweathers, the Larry Simmons, Jackson Benny may be coming from the other side. You may not see them getting the ball a lot. You may see that more relying on the tight ends and on Ryan Davis, who's kind of the possession receiver. But, man, they're going to have to execute, and they're going to have to not have penalties on the plays when they do strike, like we saw on that one with Texas Tech and Benny. You mentioned something during that answer, Zach, which was the guys that are coming over from the defensive side and playing on offense. It's something that I think it's not a novelty in college football. I think people have kind of, for some reason, talked about it as if Colorado invented it last year. No, Morgan Scalley played a little bit both sides. Eric Weddle did it. Steve Fafita did it. Like, Utah's been doing it. Other schools have done it historically. There has been a rise in how much we're seeing it. Sione Vaki, Travis Hunter, of course, at Colorado a bunch as well. And then this year for Utah, they've kind of gone beyond what we've ever seen really in modern college football. They've got 3 defensive contributors who are playing major reps on the offensive side of the ball. Now, Zach, I like the creativity. I like the open-mindedness to go and do that. But it seems like maybe those guys are being asked to do it a little too much. It seems like it may be a little bit too much of a necessity, which, as you kind of alluded to, might be a little bit of a red flag.
Yeah, it's absolutely a red flag. I can't think of any time where we had any guys, anytime I played football, probably outside of high school, where we had guys from the other side of the ball, whether it be offense to defense or defense to offense. It's always going to show a lack of something, and obviously our offense is lacking, playmakers, and they've been searching obviously to try to find some playmakers, some more guys to mix in there and throw in the pot and things like that. And those guys have done a good job, but like you said, it's definitely been a little too much, right? I think it was very cool the first couple of games versus some opponents where he wasn't really worried too much about a lot of risk. But now getting into conference play, you want guys to be at the best at their respectable positions, just as from what my standpoint of it is. So that leaves a lot for the guys that you have recruited and you brought in and transferred into on the offensive side of the ball. And, obviously with Dan Pierce's injury, and we don't know exactly where that's at right now. At least I don't, with the ankle, and him being a dual threat quarterback and him making his legs are a lot of the reasons why he's really, really good. Now, if he's not able to move around the pocket in that sense, right, now you put even more of a bullseye on the receivers to really have to create and really win and really be on time. And now we get to see more of this passing game that's really going to be at the forefront just because of an injury. And they've already been, not very good in the passing game, which is kind of scary when you're talking about the next few opponents that they're going up against.
When was the last time you played both sides of the football?
Probably 10th or 11th grade.
Not varsity ball. You playing like JV ball where you're playing Pop Warner? What?
No, varsity. 10th or 11th was varsity. Yeah. So that was the last time.
You playing linebacker?
Yep, linebacker and running back. Yep.
I want to see some Zach Moss linebacker tape. I've never seen that.
I'll have to send it to
you. Speaking of defense, man, let's check over on the defensive side of the ball. The Utes have been, at times, Zach, the offense has obviously been better than last year, not this week against Texas Tech, of course. But I heard some people compare the feeling last week against Texas Tech a little bit to the feeling of last year, where this defense is just keeping you in the football game. They're willing everything they can to keep you in the football game. They almost scored. They are getting possessions. They're getting or they're getting turnovers. They're working with really, really difficult field position on the other side, and getting you the ball back on the offensive end. And, it was kind of shades of the last couple of years for Utah because their offense just couldn't get anything going. How impressed have you been with this Utah defense through 3 games, even considering, the last, 9 or so minutes against Texas Tech where things fell apart?
Yeah, they've been awesome this entire season so far through the first 4 weeks. You really couldn't have asked more. Obviously, they did what they did as well last season, and that was really good. But, obviously it's a new year. So, and they feel like they haven't really missed a beat. They've been really, really good, what you always expect from a Coach Scalley-led defense and everybody else on the side of that staff. They always do a really good job. So I'm not really surprised. I get the comparisons of last year where, you're in these super close games and, man, his offense can just figure out a way to get, 20 points on the board or something like that versus some really good offenses that the defense has been going against. You feel like you're in a really good place. And I get that, and I understand that, and it is very hard to watch because watching that Tech game, it just felt like the defense was out there just putting on a masterclass. And talk about an offense that was averaging so many points and so many yards in their first couple of weeks themselves, and they came out and really shut it down to some degree. And obviously the back end they weren't able to hold because at some point, right, it's going to collapse, which it did. But it's definitely a different vibe from last year. You don't have the injuries. You don't have those different type of things. You have some just small things on offense that show up really big that need to be fixed and has to be fixed in a hurry. Or, the season can slip away pretty fast, and you can be sitting there and then kind of comparing it to what last season was, to where it's just so many close games, but the offense just can't pull it out. And I don't think that this year will go like that. I think the offense will figure out a way to, get to the same page and get to the party with the defense, and Coach Witt will give his guys to, fully play combination football, and everything kind of complements each other.
What's standing out on the defensive side of the football most to you? Obviously, John Henry Daly's leading the country in sacks. They've kind of rekindled a little bit of the havoc plays that they were missing a little bit of for the last couple of years. That's kind of what's standing out to me. But, man, there's a lot to like. They're rushing 4 and usually getting pressure. They're rotating through a bunch of linebackers outside of the questions on depth and injuries in the defensive backfield. There's a lot to like, but I wonder what kind of jumps off the page to you.
To me, it's energy and effort. Like you said, they're rotating so many different guys. Guys are playing both sides of the ball, so other guys having to come in and step in and play a big role as well and get some meaningful snaps. And that's been really good to see. That means they have depth, right? That's a testament to the coaching staff on going out and finding guys that can come in and play in the system and do that early on for them. So that's awesome to see, because it's energy and effort is sometimes can be hard to get out of players. But I've been on the sideline a few games now, and I can just hear the conversation, hear the communication, hear the energy, hear the passion that the guys are speaking with. That's to the coaches and player to player. And so you got guys holding each other accountable on the defense side of the ball, which shows as a unit, because, one guy can't go out there and do everything by themselves. So those guys are on the same page. Guys are doing the right things and things of that nature. So you're seeing a really good product right now, and hopefully they can continue to do that. And, we'll be in a spot where we really want to be at the end of the year.
Morgan Scalley, of course, taking over this team once Kyle Whittingham decides to hang it up. He is the head coach in waiting. I wonder if you've noticed anything different from Morgan, with that kind of on the back burner, maybe the side burner, whatever you want to call it. The way he carries himself, the way, he approaches the game, or do you think that Morgan Scalley is, kind of the way he is and that's set in stone?
I think he's the way he is. I'm pretty sure he's been doing some different things behind the scenes on kind of just getting ready, but I believe he's always knew he was going to be a head coach at some point in his career. I think a lot of people obviously knew at the same time that he would probably be the guy to take over the helm once Coach Witt decides to, retire or whatever. So I think he's been the same guy from what I've been able to see. I think guys really do like him. I think he's a really good leader of men. And that's not going to be a huge drop-off, especially in the first year, second year, because he's sat behind Coach Witt now for so many years, and he sees what it looks like to be consistent in these different conferences. And I love that Coach Witt, didn't step away right away as they got into this new conference, and it kind of has allowed Coach Scally to kind of still also be able to learn this new conference at the same time. So whenever that he does pass over that key to the university, he can take a lot of things that he's kind of learned and saw already and kind of implement them his way. And you won't miss the big beat, man. I think that's the main thing. You've always had competitive teams, and that's a big thing. And I think Coach Scally is going to be ready to go ahead and take over and do that.
We kind of covered all of it on the field. Outside of the one thing that I got to get your insight on, Zach Moss, Wayshawn Parker, Nakari Rogers, Devin Dampier. I don't really know who's going to lead this team in rushing, but for Utah, it has been by committee at times. Wayshawn's put the ball on the ground a little bit, which is given the opportunity for some other backs as well. The offensive line, Zach, is one that we expected to be one of the best in the country, and I think they've been really good on some of the run blocking stuff. A lot of their issues really have actually been penalties and in pass pro. What have you thought of the run game and specifically how the hierarchy is looking in the backfield with those backs?
Yeah, definitely someone has to separate themselves at some point. And Coach Witt kind of alluded to it, I believe, the other day. No one's really pulled away from each other. And I think, honestly, maybe it's not a bad thing right now. I think both of those guys do really good. Two really different styles of how they play, but they are very similar at the same time. I think it's always great to have two backs, which you've kind of seen a lot in the NFL. You got a lot of teams have two guys. That way, one guy gets a little tired, the other guy's fresh, and vice versa. And you kind of keep rotating guys like that, especially behind that offensive line. That's almost awesome, especially when you have a quarterback at the same time who's able to go and rush for 1,000 yards himself if he's allowed to. So you got a three-headed monster in that sense of how good the running game can be. I think it is a hard thing right now trying to figure out. I've seen a lot of people talking about carries and things of that nature, and I'm sure, both of those guys being competitors in that room, they probably both want a ton of carries. But at the same time, I think the offense is built a certain way. I think a lot of things run through Dampier, and the offense, the running game has been efficient up until obviously this past weekend. It has been really efficient, but I think now, obviously play calling probably needs to show a little bit more of consistency on leaning on those guys. I feel like we got away from those guys a lot in the Texas Tech game, which you never want to see, and it takes a lot away from the backs' confidence. Same thing with offensive line. Obviously, he's put the ball in the ground twice, which then, kind of makes it, in a sense, kind of right for the offensive coordinator to kind of pull back from the run game. But that's our strength, right? I think our strength is obviously Dampier and his legs, Dampier making off-time, off-schedule plays, and then obviously the two backs with one of the best offensive lines in the country, right? So I think those three, all those different things combined, man, those are what we need to hang our hat on when things kind of get awry from us and just go and play Utah football.
And we didn't mention yet Hunter Andrews, who's gone for the year. He's the other back that is over 100 yards in the season, kind of a tight end flex back there. I think that's a big loss for Utah, and especially with him out, Zach, that recipe that you just said, kind of a tandem of Nakari Rogers and Wayshawn Parker alongside of a healthy amount of Devin Dampier runs while keeping him healthy. As long as you can combine that with a little bit of threat from the outside, I think you got a lot to like on the offensive side of the ball. We just need to see that completion as far as rounding out the stuff down the field. Z, how confident should we be? Morgantown, West Virginia, a team that's reeling a little bit. Utah, fairly heavy favorites in this one. I don't think you've ever been to Morgantown. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what do you expect out of this one?
Yeah, never been down there. But expecting some good things, man. I really want to see and figure out if we can get some deep shots downfield to create some explosives. I think, everything else outside of that, we're going to see Utah football. We're going to see the run game be really prevalent this week. Like I said, obviously with the injury to Dampier with the ankle, play calling is going to change a little bit. So I think you're going to see a lot more run game. You're going to see a lot more of our offensive line being more dominant than they were this past weekend. And the defense is going to go out there and play to the standard that they're used to. So, West Virginia's a weird team. They're sitting at 2-2. They just got beat up last week. So both teams are going to come in and really try to get after it early. And I think whoever sets the tempo the fastest is going to go out and win this game. Obviously, I believe we're going to do that in how dominant we're going to be in running the ball and kind of just enforcing our will. But I would love to see some deep shots down the field and guys winning on one-on-one opportunities, because they're getting the opportunities to play one-on-one football. And, obviously I'm not a receiver, but I've played with some really, really good receivers throughout my career. If you get a chance to go one-on-one, and they salivate at those moments, and we got to find some guys that can just really, really take hold of those moments and become those guys and rise to the top, so that way Dan Pierre can continue to show what type of player he is, right? You obviously, this past weekend, you see everything on social media where people are kind of doubting him and things of that nature, but he's obviously not able to do everything by himself. It's 11 guys on that field, and, everybody has to step up and do their job at a high level. So hopefully this weekend I'm looking forward to seeing, the receivers come out of that game and having some huge confidence going up into the rest of the conference play.
Yeah, man, even if it's, a 2-possession lead for Utah, I want to see them taking some shots. I want to see them, if nothing else, getting Devin comfortable getting some air under the ball. It's something you got to get reps with as well during gameplay. All right, Zach, appreciate your time, man. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy your Saturday morning, and we'll chat soon. Thanks again.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
That was Zach Moss, former Utes running back, of course, the all-time leader up on the hill in yardage and touchdowns, all of the above. That one brought to you by our friends at Red Bull. Red Bull, of course, the original. That's the one you're used to. Red Bull's got a bunch of new ones though. This summer they're rolling out a lineup of new flavors, including the pink one that I tried and quite like. Back on the other side, more Utes game day. How about a Big 12 availability report? We'll give you the latest from Utah, from West Virginia. Take a look around the rest of the conference as well. And we'll go from there. Hand it over to Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, Stevenson, Sylvester. About an hour from right now in Morgantown. This is Utes Game Day on Utah's #1 sports talk. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
This is Utah quarterback Devin Dampier, and you're listening to Utah football on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
That's QB1, Devin Dampier, bringing us back in on the Utes Game Day pregame show. Listen to Dishing with Devin every week on the Sean O'Connell Show. If you missed it before pregame, hey, well, when we wrap up here, head over to YouTube and watch the latest edition of Edition with Devin. You can find it there or on our website each and every week. Always fun catching up with QB1, who is not appearing on the Big 12 availability report this week, nor did he last week, even though we do know he was a little bit banged up. So, speaking of the Big 12 availability report, it is brought to you today by JBR Clinical Research and our friends at CenXL, conducting clinical research studies to fuel growth and advancement in the medical field, with studies currently on acne, tummy tucks, neuropathy, chronic low back pain, osteoarthritis, knee pain, and more. Call 801-261-2000 or CenXLResearch.com. Right now, they're doing a clinical study on osteoarthritis. So there's an investigational injection you can participate in. Again, it's CenXL, that's CenXL.com/JBR for more information. On this edition of the Big 12 Availability Report, of course, the last update we got from the University of Utah in West Virginia was last night. There was no addition for Utah outside of the Hunter Andrews season-ending injury in which we knew about already. So as of today, on our injury report for the Utes is Rabbit Evans. He is out for the season. Dadrian Zipperer, he is out for the season. Hunter Andrews is out for the season. And then also on the injury report and out for the Utes today, Josh Sovereign, Paul Fitzgerald, Isaiah Garcia, and in the middle, defensive tackle Aliki Vimahi. Aliki probably the most notable of those ones and the one that would be most likely to contribute today. So looking at Aliki Vimahi as one of the absences. On the West Virginia side, there's a bunch of them. They're running back, both of them, as far as their ones and twos go. Their quarterback, the starter, he's out. They're missing an offensive lineman up front. Their center is questionable. He's their best offensive lineman. He's questionable as of last night, and then probable is their starting tight end, Jacob Barrick. Here's the deal. We'll get another one of these right after we get off air on the Utes Game Day pregame show. Bill Riley will be live on site in Morgantown, and he'll be watching these guys warm up. And, of course, we'll get one more of these Big 12 availability reports before kickoff. That one is due about 90 minutes before kickoff. So I'll of course, share that on socials, and you can get it on air here as Bill gets it as well. Again, the Big 12 availability report, injury report, whatever you want to call it. You can call it what you want, but that's a appropriate and important distinction, the availability report versus the injury report. Kyle Whittingham is not going to tell you when guys are hurt or banged up or maybe, not feeling 100%. He's going to tell you when they're playing and when they're not. And that seems like what we're going to get with the availability report. And, hey, that's what the letter of the law says. I find it interesting how this will play out as the season goes along. But, we do at least have a little bit of insight into the availability of the Utes roster. And they're fairly healthy going into this one, going down the Big 12 list. The healthiest team in the Big 12 is probably BYU. They've only got 4 guys on the entire injury report for their matchup against Colorado. And Colorado, well, they might have trouble fielding a roster today. They've got a whole bunch of issues on the injuries side. So stay tuned for a little bit more of that. On the other side, we're going to get to some schematics. We're going to get to some wide receiver play. We talked a little bit earlier with Zach Moss about our concern and our want to see Utah get the ball down the field. Well, who better to talk about that with than a wide receiver? Kenneth Gooby Scott, one of my favorite guests on the show, joins us regularly throughout the college football season. And, he'll be a good one to get the latest on the Utah Utes from the wide receiver perspective, and more. That comes your way next. Still to come, we'll give you a college football scoreboard, some games already in progress around the country, and how about a quick Big 12 ranking? We'll give you the outlook, our expectations for the Big 12 as it rolls along, and then James and I will give you our predictions and more as the show rolls along. Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, Stevenson Sylvester take over from Morgantown just over 45 minutes from now, right here on Utah's #1 sports talk. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
This is Utah linebacker Lander Barton, and you're listening to Utah football on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
Welcome back to the Utes Game Day pregame show live here in Salt Lake City. We're going to hand it over to Scott Mitchell, Bill Riley, Stevenson Sylvester. They are in Morgantown for Utah and West Virginia. That one coming your way momentarily. Now on the phone lines for this segment, one of our favorite guests to talk Utah football, and one I'm looking forward to having a conversation today specifically on this matchup. He is one Kenneth Gooby Scott on the show. Appreciate your time today, my man. What's up?
Man, nothing much. Just doing some good community event. Going to talk to some kids who's part of the advisory council. So looking forward to it, and also looking forward to hopefully our youth getting back on the W column, right? So we can get away from last week.
That's what we're hoping for. Obviously, a statement win by Texas Tech last week. Give me your thoughts on that one. We won't make you stew in it too much. But go back to last week against Texas Tech. That's the first time they've ever been to Salt Lake, man. And well, they handled their business, and I think they made a statement to the rest of the conference. We'll learn a little bit more this week and as the season goes along, but that looked like a really good team in Texas Tech.
Man, a really good team. And they have a great problem to have right now with the quarterback situation. I ain't going to lie, the backup quarterback, he may have earned him, some really good starting position points. And if nothing happens this year, someone's going to be paying him big money. But, man, I thought the Texas Tech team came in first time to Salt Lake City, handled it really well. Man, I thought the defense was just on the field for so long, man.
Right.
And I know Coach Smith said that they gave up, but – man, when you're on the field for that long, and it's tough, man. It's tough to not crack, Offensively, I think we were just shooting ourselves in the foot, man. We weren't getting the red zone. Things just wasn't going our way. Hearing, our quarterback, Dampier, was hurt. It's like, man, it's tough. So I'm just hoping we get our rhythm, get more people involved, especially with Hunter Andrews now out for the season, I heard, and that's tough. But I'm pretty sure we can have other people step in and do a good job as well.
Yeah, Goob, there were a little shades of last year with how the game felt a little bit at times, right? When your offense just couldn't get it moving, your defense was getting the ball, they were getting turnovers, but it just seemed like you kept giving it back or making mistakes in big moments, and it really did affect the Utes in that game. Otherwise, I thought that was a really good football game for about 3.5 quarters, and then of course, as we said, the gates kind of open for Texas Tech. Other than that, though, I thought it was a really competitive, really fun game. I was impressed with their defensive line and otherwise.
Yep.
Gooby, looking forward to this matchup with West Virginia. I think one thing that I really, really still want to see, this has been something we've talked about all week, talked about all show, whether the Utes need to or not against the Mountaineers, I want to see them get it on film. I want to see Devin Dampier get a little comfortable, getting some air under the ball, and just getting some threats down the field. I don't know if it's from your receivers, your tight ends, who it may be, but just putting some pressure on the back end of defenses, I think, will really help them in the long run, and we haven't seen it yet, and we're a month into the year.
It can be both ways. I've seen times where you just lack at the position of getting downfield, or it could be the plays are just not getting called, or the execution's just not happening. So it's kind of hard to detect. But, I definitely agree. We do need to throw some air under the ball. I know Ryan Davis has a lot of catches, but they're like 8 yards, 7 yards, It's like the little yardage. And so we want to, at least be a threat in the passing game, whether it's just us first play like we did with Money Parks last year. We just, 70-yard bomb. Just throw it, man. Just take a shot. And I think if we act with more risk, I know it sounds crazy, like just showing people that we can do it, like just put it on film, just throw it, right? Trust our receivers to go up and get it. Merriweather, I'm sure he has a big frame, can go up and get it, compete for a ball. Just give them the opportunity. And so I will hope that we can do that. I know I keep on forgetting his name, but he's number 23. I see him that we threw him deep, and he was able to connect even though got called back. But, I'm pretty sure we have other receivers that can do that as well on a consistent basis. We just have to give them either the opportunity to do it, or we just have to execute better. So we just got to figure out, what's that? Because it could be a play call situation, or it could just be we just don't have the threat. So it just depends.
More specifically, and Jackson Benny's 23, the kid playing both ways. Kenneth, give me an idea of what you have seen from the guys on the outside in particular. You're our wide receiver man on the pregame show, so just give us some insight on maybe what has been limiting them. It seems like they faced quite a bit of man coverage. They faced pretty much just quarters last week. Give us an idea of what maybe is limiting them and what teams have done well against the Utes so far.
Yeah, it's, a lot of colleges aren't dumb or crazy, when it comes to defensive schematics. And so, for instance, if I know for sure that you're not going to be a downhill threat, then I'm sitting and squatting on every route if I'm a DB. Like, you're not going to break my cushion. You're not going to open up. So I'm just going to sit on every route in the intermediate or the short game. And that's some of the hurdles that we face. I remember back when I was playing, a lot of the routes that were called were, more sticks route. Right? So you go to the sticks, pass 2 yards, you turn around and sit down. And so a DB, if they're not scared of you blowing past them, they're just going to sit on that route all the time. Luckily for me, I had, good body positioning and was able to convert a lot of the times. But, that could be a point right there where defenses aren't scared of us, so they're squatting the whole time. But, another thing, too, as receivers, sometimes, just as much as it needs a quarterback to get in rhythm, I feel like receivers have to get in rhythm, too. And it's tough for us to go from not getting the ball at all,
right.
and getting 1 attempt or 2 attempts a game. We need to touch the football. So it's tough for us if we're not getting no action, and then in a critical moment you expect us to make a play in a critical moment. That's tough, even though that's our job and what we signed up for, but that's tough. And I just hope, with us, I feel like Merriweather has the skill set to do that. I know obviously Ryan Davis, he has a good route runner, catch the ball underneath. I feel like we have the receivers to do it. We just got to put more trust in it and finally get on the same page. But for a long answer, short answers wise, I think we just got to trust the guys and put the ball in the air. I think that's what it just boils down to.
And yeah, important to mention, as you just did, Ryan Davis, who's been phenomenal this year. He's been a little bit of a safety blanket for Devin Dampier on the outside. My discussion is more on vertical threats down the field behind the defense. Ryan he's been great, but he is very much by definition kind of a possession type receiver, not a lot of yards after, and that's fine. That's a an identity you do need on part of an offense, but just wondering where some of the vertical stuff is going to come from. You see a little bit of it from J.J. Buchanan out of the tight end room. You see a little bit of it, as you mentioned, from Jackson Benny, who's coming over from the defense. Kenneth, let me ask you about that dynamic. 3 different players. Hunter Andrews, of course, played a little bit of both sides. A lot of guys that have played both sides in the past. But 3 players specifically for Utah that are getting legitimate reps on both sides of the ball. They're really good, and obviously there's a need to get them on the field. But I wonder how you've watched that play out, and your thoughts on that dynamic from maybe a little bit of a coaching perspective too.
Yeah, the one thing you just don't want them to burn out, but it seems like we are doing a great job load management-wise, not playing them too much, not playing them too less, just enough so they can have an impact. But I also wonder, how does it affect other, right, from a confidence standpoint?
Right.
Do you not trust me? Do you not believe in me to get the job done? So you have to. So from that point of view, it's for other receivers, man, from a confidence standpoint, I wonder how shocked they are. Not getting opportunities. Now you're putting people on the opposite end on my position, taking, possessions away from me, right? And so, but I love it. I mean, they're in regards to the ability to make plays. You see Jack, you see Leonard, you see Snowden, right? The only thing is, as we get further in the season, I'm wondering how often can they continue doing it to where it won't make an effect. What they're doing right now is making an impact, so that's good. So, I'm interested to see how it continues to go, but I do hope that someone else can climb up to the ranks so that it can put less damage on their bodies as the season, long season goes on.
All right, we're gonna rewind to Kenneth Scott in Salt Lake City days. Morgan Scalley, he sees this number 2. He's moving well. He's jumping around. He's fast. He's got good ball skills. And he says, hey, I want that guy on my side of the ball. Where's Kenneth Scott playing?
Man, at one point, I'm not going to lie, it was actually my red shirt freshman year. No, it was 2 points in my career where I went up to him and was asked, hey, can I just play defense, right? Because the lack of the balls coming my way. So I was like, can I just play defense? And there was a time where I went to Coach Scally, Coach Sataki, asked him, can I play safety? And Coach Shaw always talks to me about this because in high school I played safety. And he was like, son, if you were to play safety right now, you're probably still being in the league right now. And, Coach Shaw always believed in I was a great safety. He always wanted to see me in that realm. I tried a few times, but it kind of got denied because they were like, well, who are we gonna have at the receiver spot? Like, if you can't just come over as defense, right? But it was great talks, man. I would love to play some safety under Coach Scally. I'll probably be the safety that's more in the box. I like the strong safety type. I remember like a Marquise Blair.
Okay.
I loved the way he played. But I was more of the strong type safety type of player. But in high school, I was free safety. But in college, I felt like I would have been good at that strong safety, especially in the nickel package. So you can come down, be a bigger nickel that can also cover the tight ends type thing. So. But yeah, I love defense. That's my favorite.
You just want contact, it sounds like.
Yes, that's crazy because you mentioned that because in our position drills, whenever we did like blocking drills, Coach Shaw, they was like, man, K-Scott, I remember I gave Reggie Porter a concussion. I used to, like in blocking drills, I took that thing serious. Like I was coming down like a missile just smacking people because I just love contact, and that's what one of the things that in the blocking game I took pride in it, going down, getting the safety, digging them out so that the running backs can, bounce out.
I love it. And hey, yeah, you saw it on the field. You see it in tape. I was kind of in my mind. I was thinking more free safety, right? The long arms, the ball skills, like a little Robert Johnson type. Hey, come to play in the box. Get your nose in the business. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, Kenneth.
My favorite player of all time. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
My favorite player of all time was I used to love watching Taylor Mays.
Yes.
And so that's my type of safety right there. So like in high school, I would try to imitate him, and so that's how I played in high school. Is like a Taylor Mays.
Plays
so
with his face mask.
Player right there. Yep.
Plays with his face mask. Yep. I love it. Gets into it and man, always around the ball. I love that. So. Looking forward to today, though. We've got West Virginia, Utes' first trip to Morgantown. Quickly, your thoughts on that venue? It's a school we've never played in conference play. It's a new setting for Utah. So I don't think you've ever been there, but it's I'm sure a place you've seen and have a little familiarity with.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the last time I really took notice of West Virginia, I mean, there's no slight to them whatsoever, was like Pat White, Geno Smith, and,
right.
All those guys, and Stedman Bailey and Tavon Austin. So I haven't heard too much from them since, like, that piece or really paid attention. But, I mean, with them having injuries, I heard it was the quarterback, running back, receiver, all the starters. I was like, well, shoot, ESPN saying it's like a 75% chance of winning. I mean, I'm hoping if we just play our game, we come out with a win, get on the better side. I think we should be all right, man. Hopefully no crazy weather stuff. But it's weird. I've never seen West Virginia. Don't even know what's in West Virginia. But it should be a good game.
A lot of hills and trees. Oh, man. All right, K. Scott, we appreciate your time as always, man. We'll let you get back to it. Let's get you to Salt Lake soon, no?
Yeah, man, we got to.
All right, man. Appreciate your time.
No problem. Have a good one.
That's Kenneth Scott, former Utah wide receiver, great here on the Hill, and now a friend of the program. He joins us pretty regularly here on the Utes GameDay pregame show. We always appreciate his time. The Utes GameDay pregame show brought to you by Outlaw Distillery. Our friends at Outlaw Distillery and outlawdistillery.com. Of course, locals here to the Utah market. They are our ESPN 700 VIP tailgate sponsor and spirits provider. And our boy Tyler joins the program now to talk a little Outlaw. What's up, man?
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Good morning. We're at an away game this week, so no tailgate up on campus. We miss seeing you. We miss doing the thing. But they're out in Mountaineer country. They're out in Moonshine country.
Yeah, it's going to be.
I'm sure they're having a good time out there.
McAfee.
There you go. So what's the latest at Outlaw? I hear you guys have a new offering.
Yeah, just because it's a home game doesn't mean we're not having our own little shindig. We're doing a little open house down here at the distillery, right between that Sandy Midvale border, celebrating the release of our barrel-proof bourbon. It's a really fun product. Came out at 133.2 proof, which is really nice because it drinks way less than that. A lot cleaner, a lot smoother. And it's one of the times where you taste a barrel and you go, wow, this is something that can put Utah on the map. We're releasing that to the public, so we're expecting quite a few of the regulars and a handful of new faces, hopefully.
So. Yeah, we'll just do a quick one. Outlaw Distillery, 552 West, 8360 South in Sandy. And as he mentioned, a little open house. You can go and stop by, do a tour and tasting on this Saturday. Maybe you got some time before the game. What do the hours look like on your afternoon?
Yeah, we opened at 10 this morning. We'll be here till about 6. Obviously, games will be on. It's it's college football Saturday.
Do you suffer from osteoarthritis of the knee? Senexel.
Sorry about that, Tyler. But give the folks the lowdown on the office hours and the times during the week as well, just in case. Hey, maybe today doesn't work. They've already got stuff going on. When they can stop by.
Saturday, 10 to 6.
Awesome. All right, Tyler. Appreciate your time as always. We'll chat again next week. I'll send folks to both your locations and then also the spots around town where they can stop by and get a taste. The liquor stores,
Absolutely.
Big Willie's, and our ESPN 700 tailgate.
Sounds good, guys. Appreciate you.
As always, a big thank you to our friends at Outlaw Distillery. Back on the other side, how about a college football scoreboard? A little Big 12 power ranking as well before we get into it. We'll send it over to Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, Stevenson, Sylvester in under a half hour. They're in Morgantown for Utah and West Virginia. On your home of the Utes, ESPN 700, Utah's #1 sports talk and a proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
This is head coach Kyle Whittingham, and you're listening to Utah football on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
Coach Witt bringing us back in on the Utes Game Day pregame show. A couple quick segments with you, and then we'll hand it over to Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, and Stevenson Sylvester for the call of the game. It's the Utes' first ever trip to Morgantown for a conference matchup. Big 12 play coming your way a little bit later on. How about a scoreboard update for you around the country? Last night, some really fun football. 27-24, Arizona State got the comeback win over 24th-ranked TCU in a really, really entertaining game. Sam Levitt was awesome, and Arizona State continues to look good. They're 2-0 in Big 12 play, and that'll help them in our Big 12 rankings that we'll get to a little bit later. Virginia gets the 46-38 win over number 8 Florida State, the final in double overtime. Just two really, really fun games with a couple of top 25 teams last night on some Friday night lights. How about some games in the morning? Number 16, Georgia Tech taking on Wake Forest. They're down 7-3 early. That's a ranked battle. The ranked battle, rather, is USC and Illinois, a Big Ten matchup here. Illinois, the early lead over the Trojans, 14-7. Illinois, 23 in the country, USC 21. Notre Dame and Arkansas has kicked off. Notre Dame up early, 21-10 over the Razorbacks. And then here's the one you got to keep your eye on for the next hour or hour and a half, 2 hours before Utah kicks off. The Utah State Aggies, led by one Bryson Barnes. They are up 7-0 as the first quarter winds down in SEC country against top 20 Vanderbilt. So keep an eye on that. 3-1 Bronco Mendenhall and the Aggies are, and we'll keep an eye on them as the day goes along. How about the Big 12 slate on this Saturday afternoon? Cincinnati and Kansas. That one's already off and running. They're approaching halftime. It's 17-13 right now for the Bearcats. Kansas State has a 3-0 lead over UCF in that one. They are approaching halftime as well. And then the rest of the Big 12 slate this week, Baylor, Oklahoma State. That kicks off at the same time as Utah and West Virginia. Arizona and Iowa State as Arizona visits Ames in the top 15 Cyclones. And then the nightcapper. It's number 25 BYU. The 3-0 Cougars are in Boulder for a matchup with 2-2 Colorado. Of course, I mentioned the games last night. Arizona State 27, TCU 24, and then the overtime game. Houston beat the former Pac-12 foe Oregon State Beavers 27-24 as well. So some fun football on our Football Friday and some Friday night lights for you. The Big 12, we're still early. Let's be clear. Only a few conference games on the so far. Still plenty of football left in front of us. But I think Texas Tech, with the win that they had against Utah, the resume they have so far, they've shown me enough to be the number one team in the Big 12. If you look at ESPN's FPI, they are the only team in the Big 12 with a projected win-loss of above 10 wins. And they've just been really, really good early. The NIL movement, the $28 million above the 20.5 revenue share that they were allotted, man, they are rolling in it right now, and they're having fun doing it. The Texas Tech Red Raiders, they come in at number one in my Big 12 power rankings after their win against Utah. James Peterson, what say you? Is there enough on film so far that you feel confident saying Texas Tech is maybe the team to beat in this conference?
Yeah, they look like the most dominant team in the conference so far. The rest of the contenders in the conference, including Utah, look like, if everything goes their way, they might be able to win the conference, but things don't, not everything tends to go your way. It feels like they need maybe a little more help from other people or from other teams, or just a lot more a lot more stuff that 50-50 balls, luck type of stuff. Texas Tech looks like they can win regardless of that.
Texas Tech, to me, seems top to bottom just the best roster in the conference. The question mark with them is now the quarterback situation, right? Number one, is QB1 healthy, and is QB2 the guy? That's kind of the question a lot of folks in Lubbock are asking right now. Moving from Texas Tech, I think here's where I stand with power rankings. At least early in the year, it's all about the resume. It's all about the win and loss. If you're undefeated 2 months into the year, you're going to be up there top of my power rankings. That's why Iowa State is number 2. They've been good. Obviously, they are ranked as well. I've got them as my second best team in the conference. And at number 3, also undefeated, how about the top scoring defense in college football, the BYU Cougars? They've been fun to watch. I have them as my third team in the Pac-12. And after their win last night, might just have Arizona State up there. A win over ranked TCU. They are defending champions in the conference. And then after that, just to be completely honest with you, I do think Utah is probably among the better of the teams that I see kind of on the outside looking in right now, with Kansas, of course, with Cincinnati now. There's a few teams kind of in that realm that have an opportunity still very much to contend in this conference, but there's just more question marks there. James, which of those teams? I'm going to take out the undefeated Texas Tech, Iowa State, BYU. Which of these other teams that maybe have a blemish on their schedule do you think is, I guess, most likely to kind of jump back in the conversation? Is it Utah or is it someone else?
I think it's probably Utah and TCU and ASU.
Yeah,
I think it's those 3 teams. I'm not as much of a believer in Baylor as a lot of people were preseason, as I was preseason.
Yep.
I feel like their defense in particular has been exposed quite a bit. I would say Utah's offense has been exposed though too. So that's like there's some non-insignificant flaws with each of these groups of teams that they're going to have to respond to in order to truly show that they can contend and get to Dallas and the Big 12 championship game, if not win the conference.
And the funny part is we mentioned those teams with the one loss, the blemish on their record. I haven't mentioned Houston. And there's a reason for that. I know they're 4-0. I just, on tape, I'm seeing a few things that I don't think makes them necessarily a contender late. But, hey, they're 4-0. The results are there. They're proving me wrong so far. We'll see what Houston looks like late in the year. I do believe, though, the matchup we saw last week between Texas Tech and Utah was 2 of the best 3 or 4 teams in the conference. On the other side, we're going to get to our predictions for the game. We'll get you our final lines from Vegas, and James and I will go through some keys to victory for the University of Utah. It is Utah football on your home of the Utes. Utah and West Virginia going to battle at 1:30. Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, Stevenson Sylvester will take over in about 15 minutes from right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
This is Utah quarterback Devin Dampier, and you're listening to Utah football on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
QB1. That's Devin Dampier bringing us back in on the Utes Game Day pregame show. I am Porter Larsen. Final segment here before we hand it over to Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, and Stevenson Sylvester for the call. Some Big 12 action a little bit later on. It's Utah and West Virginia. The final segment, our picks, predictions for the game, brought to you by Utah Toyota dealers. Head over to toyota.com for locations and also to check out the new 2026 Camry, the Tundra, the Tacoma. It's toyota.com. 4.99% APR available through 60 months on all new vehicles. Explore all their options, again, at toyota.com or stop by one of any Utah Toyota dealers. Utah 3-1, West Virginia 2-2. The Utes opened up as 9.5-point favorites. That has moved in their direction as the week has gone on. A lot of that has had to do with West Virginia's injury issues. They're going to be without their starting quarterback. They're going to be without multiple running backs in their rotation. They're going to be without a lineman up front and quite a few skill position players, not to be named, that'll be out as well. It is not the greatest situation for West Virginia. Not only are they kind of seen as a bottom half of the Big 12 team, but they are shorthanded against a Utah team that will try to capitalize on that, especially at the quarterback position. When you are without your starting quarterback, when you are taking reps with a guy who has limited reps at the Division I Power 5 level, Morgan Scalley is going to challenge you. He's going to try to speed up the clock for that quarterback. He's going to try to get guys in his face, maybe get a quarterback change during the course of the game, even though that maybe backfired a little bit against Texas Tech. But what I can guarantee you is that this Utah defense will be going after the quarterback. They'll be trying to get physical. And like always, the Utah defense will try to stop the run and try to kind of slow things down on that end. Like I mentioned, 12.5 is the spread. The over-under is set at 46.5. And just for clarity, I was 3-0 against the spread going into last week. I did miss the Texas Tech one. I picked Utah, and, of course, Texas Tech came out with the win. But before that, we were 3-0 against the spread going in, and obviously Utah helped a bunch with that. The under hitting in Wyoming with Utah covering there, and then, again, Texas Tech kind of reversed the trend last week in Salt Lake City. So, James Peterson, if you give Utah 12.5 points, call it 13. The home team usually gets those, but of course West Virginia struggling with injuries a lot right now. Do you think that's fair with how shorthanded they are?
Oh, absolutely. And, I mean, their offense has been a mess, a lot of it because of the injuries. I mean, 4 different quarterbacks playing in basically every game for them so far. Even though this is a home game for West Virginia, I think it's more than fair to have Utah a more than 2-score favorite, almost 2-touchdown favorite. I think they're going to cover that. I think they're going to win by, I'll say that they'll win by 3 touchdowns, 42-21, something like that. Maybe even, 21 may even be maybe giving West Virginia too much credit there, so we'll see.
James is going with the over and has Utah covering. I definitely have Utah covering. I keep going back and forth. I'm going to go with the under today, just for the sake of the show, just to be contrarian there. And I got Utah 35 to 10, just barely under on this one on this afternoon. We'll see how it goes. That'll do it for the Utes Game Day pregame show. A big thank you to Zach Moss, to Kenneth Scott, 2 of the greatest to ever do it here on the Hill. Always appreciate their time. A big thank you to James Peterson behind the glass. And a big shout out to all our sponsors, including our friends Outlaw Distillery, the title sponsor of this here program. I am Porter Larsen, sending it over next to Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, and Stevenson Sylvester for the call of the game. It's Big 12 action. Utah at West Virginia, right here on your home of the Utes. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.